Good morning and welcome to Peace Out, where we are all learning together to peace out. We're all working towards that goal of just being able to just walk in that peace. And we have all the time. It doesn't go away. We just forget that it's there, right? And I should not put this on anybody else. I get my mind on something else and forget. Oh yeah, his peace didn't leave just because something happened in my day, in my world, in my family, in my life, in my head. Usually most of it's in my head, right? And so his peace didn't change. And it's that constantly going back to what he promised in the word. I was actually writing in my daily devotions for our caregivers yesterday about how the things in the word don't change. We still have salvation. We still have peace. We still are righteous no matter what. And the kingdom doesn't adjust to our world. We have to adjust our worlds to the kingdom, right? God's not up there with a notepad going, oh, wait, turn that one down, turn this one up, move that one over here. No, in response to our stuff, no. We should be moving things around. And sometimes for me, I have to remind myself what's in this word about me, that I am righteous through the blood of Christ. It's covered me. I do have peace. I do have his provision. He is a constant companion who walks with me through all my crazy stuff, right? And that says a lot because most people don't, right? But God does. He will not leave. So I have to remind myself. I put my name in scripture sometimes to remind myself of those things. But the kingdom doesn't adjust to our response or to our situations. We adjust our thought life, our hearts, to what the kingdom says about our situation or in spite of our situation. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit this morning, because we're still in Mark 6 and we're going to be in Mark 6 again tomorrow. 6, yeah. And this is like a crazy chapter, right? And so we've already had the beheading of John the Baptist. Jesus had sent out the apostles and they had seen miracles. And Jesus was rejected at Nazareth, his hometown. We talked about some of that. And today we're talking about a familiar story, and we've talked about it a lot. Jesus is feeding 5,000 people. And so it says that the people, Jesus is trying to get away and rest. He's like, let's get away and rest, which is good for anybody in ministry to take those times. Anybody not in ministry, it's good to take time to rest, because our rest is in the Lord, right? And so he was just trying to get away. He says, let's get away from the crowd. But as they went down the bank, down the lake or the river, whatever it was, the lake, I guess, the crowd was there when they landed. They were anticipating him. They knew where he was going. He was on the move. They probably had scouts or something, because they definitely didn't have a drone following him to see where he went, right? And so when they came out, they just sat there. He had compassion on them, and like a shepherd, he wanted to take care of them. So he sat and he began to just teach them. And it says he taught them many things. And I'm like, okay, so Mark told us this story, but he didn't tell us what Jesus said. Why didn't he tell us what Jesus said? Maybe that's some of Matthew's Sermon on the Mount. I don't know. This wasn't really on the mount. This was on the bank of the river, right, or the bank of the sea. I'm like, man, why didn't he take the time to write out what Jesus said? So he was fascinated on what Jesus did, and we need to know that. We need to know what God can do and will do for us, in us, through us, around us, in spite of us, right? We need to, but I'm like, could you have just taken some notes there or something to get your iPad out and record it, do it live so we could watch it later? Of course they didn't have all of these things. It was much harder to record things back then, to write things down than it is now. I mean, they would have had to carry supplies. Yeah, it's a long story. Anyway, but Jesus taught them. He did not reject them. He didn't say, I don't know why you're following me. Y'all go home. I'm tired. We came here to rest. What are you doing here? He said he was moved with compassion because they wanted to hear what he said. They wanted to know more about the kingdom. And it said he sat there and he taught them. So it gets late in the day. And I found that to be true a lot of times when we're really engaged with a sermon or a Bible. I can get lost in Bible study and look up and realize it's been an hour or two, right? And because you just get into it, it's like your brain is engaged, your spirit's engaged, your whole being is engaged, and it's just good, and you feel like God's just feeding that soul. I look up and it's afternoon, and the disciples came to him and said, hey, we need to send them away. So they've been thinking about logistics. Nothing wrong with thinking about logistics, right? But he's like, we got to send them away. They got to get back to the villages so they can go get some food. And Jesus says this to them, you feed them. Now imagine standing there empty-handed. You didn't bring any food with you either, right? And you're expressing this need to Jesus. Sometimes we get this from God. So play with me here a minute, right? They go to God. You've got to send them away. They got to go buy some food. They got to go eat. They've been here all day listening to you and they don't have food. And Jesus says, will you feed them? And I imagine standing there empty-handed, and I can just imagine the look of bewilderment on my own face going, with what? Feed them how? And because, my head's 20 steps ahead going, there's not. And I imagine them and then they actually said, with what? With what? It said it would take a small fortune for us to even go buy food for this big of a crowd. And then Jesus says this, how much food do you have? And he must have got a blank stare, because then it says, go find out. They must have just been standing there like, how does he expect us? Maybe they think, is this a joke? Because does God really expect us to just feed these people? How? And they're probably just standing there like in a sense of shock of how, what, when. This is not making sense. Do you ever find yourself in those spots where you know what God said? Right? Just peace out. Wait, did you not see all this stuff that just happened in my world? Right? Do you not understand? Sometimes it's something seemingly simple as to share the gospel, or to give somebody some money on the corner, or maybe go pray with someone. I prayed with people in restaurants that seemed out of place, but then later it's like, wow, that was a God thing, right? And God actually touched hearts. I got some crazy stories, right? But when we look at it initially, it's like, this logistically doesn't work. What do you mean feed them? And are they just staring at him like, are you going to bring manna from heaven, or something? Maybe they're thinking, well, God sent manna, quail. You look into the sky, some manna going to fall out, some quail. And we'll try to figure it out in our natural brain. And God said, just go find out what you've got. So they went and they came back and they said, we've got 5 loaves and 2 fish. And, then Jesus told everybody to sit down, and they put them in groups of 50 to 100, right? And then Jesus took the loaves and he blessed them. It says he looked toward heaven and he asked God's blessing on the food. 5 loaves, 2 fishes. And then it says that he began breaking the loaves into pieces and giving it to the disciples to give to the people. So imagine this picture. He breaks a loaf in half and hands you a half. And then he breaks the loaf in half and hands you a half, and then he breaks the loaf in half. Mathematically, this isn't adding up. That doesn't math, right? Just gives another, and he continued breaking the bread, and it never went away. He continued giving fish, and it never went away. They didn't use it up. That's a picture of his peace and his provision, right? We never use it up. It's never gone, right? And then it says they all ate as much as they wanted. They came back for seconds or third. It says he just kept breaking it off to give to the disciples. They had as much as they wanted. And then they picked up 12 baskets of leftover bread and fish. They had more left than what they started with. Think about that a second. They had more left than what they started with. That doesn't math. That makes those things, little nerves in your brain go, okay, wait. You had 5 loaves, 2 fishes. You fed 5,000 people, and now you have 12 baskets of bread and fish. That doesn't math. And I'm so glad it doesn't. Because when God does something miraculous in our lives, it doesn't have to make sense. We don't have to figure out how he got us from a little, looking at an insurmountable problem, to more than enough, more than what you started with. That's the kind of God we serve. And we talked about this, I think it was last week, that when God provided a need, there was always more left than what they started with. This is an amazing thing about God. The principle of multiplicity is just amazing. I believe it's in Deuteronomy 1:11, and he said, I'll multiply you 1,000 times. I'm going to look it up. Sorry. I know I shouldn't run. I hope I have the right verse. It might be Leviticus. We're going to look real quick. But he said he was going to multiply them. It's Deuteronomy 1:11. May the Lord, the God of your ancestors, multiply you 1,000 times more and bless you as he promised. He's a God of multiplicity. We're down here trying to still add 2 + 2 = 4, because that's our most basic principle, right? We're going to base all of our math on that. And 2 is important because that's our whole binary system. Computer system is based on 0 and 1. Get that. And we're trying to figure out the zeros. How do zeros and ones make a computer system? How do zeros and one make, and that's how God works. It's bigger than we can imagine. And he's a God of multiplicity. So they had much more than what they even started with when God blessed that meal that day and fed 5,000 people. I love that about God. And I have to trust that he's going to do the same in my life. As I said, I'm thinking about from the viewpoint of the people. Were they hungry? Were they asking for food? They didn't want to leave to go eat. They didn't want to miss what Jesus was saying. That's an amazing thing too, because they just sat there while he taught. And maybe they didn't even think about food. They were so engrossed in what he was saying. That's an amazing picture itself. And then you've got the disciples going, I don't know what we're going to do. And going from that to, okay, I'll go get another piece. And then he's still giving out. And he only had 7 to start with. And we're still giving, and just watching it unfold was a miracle in itself in front of all these people for the disciples. And Jesus never batted an eye. And then when they were done, they had more than they started with. That's the kind of God we serve. We're not going to run out of peace. We're going to end up with more than what we started with, right? We're not going to run out of grace, mercy, his love. We're not going to run out. He is our provider. He is our shepherd. He is going to take care of us. And the other thing is he understood their natural need. Now, he did something supernatural to take care of those natural needs, but he didn't say, oh, I don't worry about physical food. I'm just worried about the food from heaven. I'm just worried, which is the most important. Well, I'll throw that out there. But he didn't ignore. He didn't say, I don't know what they're going to do. They should have brought some food. Did they not plan? They knew they was running down the bank down here to come to see us. Did they not bring something? They didn't bring food. They should be hungry. You deserve to be hungry. You did not bring anything. You did not prepare. No, he didn't have any of that judgment. He wasn't hateful. He didn't say anybody should have done he didn't should on anybody. He just said, feed them. Feed them. Because that was the most natural thing for a supernatural God to do, was just feed them, take care of them. And then he applied his kingdom principle of multiplicity to it. God is a God of multiplicity. He's a God of provision, and we can trust him with everything every single day, and he'll act in our lives too. Even if we're standing there with the disciples with the look on our hearts of, what? He's still got us covered. And he's not going to let us down. We can trust him for one more day, and we can peace out. So peace out. Have a great day. Hope I said something that made sense. I'll see you again tomorrow.